we're just dying to see heavyweight boxing have a tremendous long renaissance, and obviously these two guys have been leading it, and a guy who would know all about that is a Hall of Fame boxing analyst for Showtime Television, author, stage performer, artist, Renaissance man, good friend, Al Bernstein. How are you, Al?
Rich, good to be with you.
Good to be with you as well. I give you the floor, sir, and what we saw on Saturday night. What did we see?
Yeah, it was an extraordinary performance by Tyson Fury. And the reason it was extraordinary is the way he went about it. You know, in the first fight, which I was privileged to announce, the first pay-per-view where they fought, Tyson Fury did what he does. He's an exceptional boxer, good defensive fighter, has a long jab, and he boxed against the slugger, Deontay Wilder. Survived 2 knockdowns, one astonishingly. The second knockdown he got up from is the most amazing thing I've seen in 40 years of announcing boxing. And yet for this fight, he pressed forward from the moment the fight started. He told us he was going to do that in advance. I certainly didn't think. I thought that was just him using gamesmanship. He pressed forward, used his jab to walk his way in, to walk down Deontay Wilder and bully him, which was what to me was the extraordinary part.
And I mean, you also had, we're seeing him singing and dancing and just like he was getting ready for a stroll through the park, not a prize fight in front of the entire universe, Al. I mean, that was amazing to witness that.
He's a fascinating guy. For about 5 years, I did boxing for Channel 5, which is an over-the-air network in the UK, and I did a number of Tyson Fury fights as he was coming up. And you get to know somebody at that level a little better because there's not all the trappings around them, and you can have unfettered, being available to be with him. And so, as a result, I got to know him a little bit, and he's an extraordinary individual. He has a huge belief. He has a very quirky view of life. I think we can all say that. And so, when you look, if I was going to make an analogy, remember how relaxed and easygoing Evander Holyfield was before? I think it was before the Tyson fight. We saw him singing on his way in, and I mean, in a way, it was like that.
Well, and you're the perfect person to ask this question since you've seen all these fights and you are in the International Boxing Hall of Fame for that. Have you ever seen anybody lick the blood off the nape of the neck of an individual whose ear he might have punctured with a hit?
That was an absolute first, yes. That was, did I say quirky? I believe.
Yeah.
Perhaps understated.
Yeah.
Quirky, I believe, is an understatement of that. I don't even know how to describe the idea of him doing that. But that was strange. Well, that's the thing about boxing, especially heavyweight boxing, whether it's somebody coming in on a jetpack and crashing next to the ring or any number of other bizarre things that have happened. The one thing you can count on is that with heavyweight championship prize fighting, something strange is going to happen. Oh, remember that time somebody bit off somebody's ear? Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Holyfield's the one who had his ear bitten, and Tyson's the one who did that. And now we've got a Tyson in a first name just licking the nape of the neck of his opponent. So how does one beat Fury, Al? How does one we did see Wilder come close. Just got to get that one punch in? Is that the way it works here?
Yeah, I mean, look, Tyson Fury has been down several times in his career, about 5, I think. And you can put him down. The problem is keeping him down. That is tricky. But remember, he was close to losing against Otto Wallin in the previous fight to this when he got cut badly. Now that can happen to any fighter, obviously. So he's not unbeatable, obviously, but he's a very difficult man to fight because he's got his length, he jabs well, and he's got a good chin, and he's got good defensive skills. So he's a very awkward fighter, and all of that makes him tough to fight. Now, Deontay Wilder, of course, wanted to get the big right hand in. He landed several right hands early in the fight, but then really stopped throwing that punch for a variety of reasons, but you need to beat Tyson Fury. You're going to need to hit him with something special.
Al Bernstein.
And part of the problem is, too, because he's 6'9", because of his long reach, and because of the way he fights, doing that isn't always so easy.
Al Bernstein here on the Rich Eisen Show. Is there a comparison for Tyson Fury? You got a good comp?
I don't know. One of the things that has kind of annoyed me, both on Twitter and everywhere else, is that people have been obsessed with this idea of comparing these heavyweights to others and trying to figure out where they place in history. This isn't one of those golden era. It's a good era for heavyweights now because people are fighting each other and it's exciting and it's creating a lot of interest in a sport that is having a renaissance to a degree because of a lot of different things. So that's good. That's all good. I don't know where. He's a handful for any heavyweight of the past because of his height and his size and the way he fights. Where he fits in historically and who you could compare him to, I don't know if there's an apt comparison because there haven't been that many heavyweight champions that are 6'9" who fight like he fights. Lennox Lewis ushered in the era of the big, tall heavyweight. He's spectacular. I think Lennox Lewis is one of the great heavyweights of all time. But he's not. He doesn't fight exactly like Lennox Lewis. So Tyson Fury is unique.
Where do you stand on the subject of Wilder's corner not doing justice for their fighter by throwing in the towel, Al?
They didn't have a good night overall. There was a lot of, JP's and Mark Glynn are professional guys. I wouldn't bash them, but they didn't have a good night overall. They didn't do a great job of dealing with his injuries. Mark Breland did that. Mark Breland, a former welterweight champion, a wonderful man, did that because he felt like his fighter was in trouble. I would not criticize someone for doing that. Clearly, there was a disagreement apparently in the corner about that afterwards. JD said he would not have done it, but I can't criticize the corner for doing that. Wilder was in the corner and in trouble, and Mark Breland must have felt that at that juncture with the injuries he had, the ear injury, tremendous bleeding from the mouth, and was not firing back, was not really punching back that much. Mark Breland felt that they'd seen enough.
Well, Wilder said he wished he could have been taken off on a shield because that's what a warrior does, but maybe that's just...
Yeah, and you have to give Deontay Wilder credit for wanting to compete. And one of the interesting things is, JD's made the point, well, he's got such a powerful right hand, he's come back before in fights. Yes, he has. He's been behind in a number of fights, but never beaten up. And the problem was, in that fight, he wasn't even throwing the right hand at that point. And so the major weapon that he could have used that would have gotten him back in this fight just wasn't being used. So that was problematic. And for Deontay Wilder, this is a tricky time now. Does he accept the rematch clause? Or he has to do that within 30 days. The fight obviously can happen when he's healthy. But should he make that his next fight? He's 34 years of age. Can he afford to fight a couple of fights against somebody else and then get back in against perhaps the Fury after Fury has gone off and done something else big like fight Joshua or whatever? I don't know. It's a tricky decision for them. Shelley Finkel suggested at the press conference that they would accept the rematch, invoke the rematch clause. We'll see.
Well, let me ask you, Al Bernstein, what should he do in your estimation? You just laid out some pros and cons. You just kind of like made a list of what should be and what should not be. Let's turn to the future here and start with that question. What do you think he should do?
Yeah, I think that it's a very risky proposition if they do that. I think if somebody said to me, you have to advise them. And I'm sure they're desperate, by the way, to have me as their advisor. Who isn't, right? But I would probably say don't do it right away. He's 34. Heavyweights mature later anyway. He's a power puncher. That power is going to be there no matter what. I would say have at least one fight in the interim. Try and get him stable. That's where I would go. And if I was Tyson Fury, which I sense might be your next question.
Yes, sir, Al.
I had a feeling. I am, I have ESPN that way. Oh
Nice.
wait, what did I say?
Yes.
I think that Tyson Fury has so many interesting paths available to him. One of those paths is a historical one, and I think they actually could make this fight. I actually believe they could make the fight between him and Anthony Joshua. If they did that, and that fight was held in front of 90,000 people in Wembley Stadium, it would not only be the biggest boxing event in British history, it would be a massive world boxing event as well. It will be needless to say, in terms of being lucrative for the fighters, that and then some.
So then what would prevent that from happening?
Well, they're only Fury deciding to go in another direction, I think, or Joshua not. But Eddie Hearn, the promoter of Joshua, and he has worked with Bob Arum, the top-ranked people. They've worked together on fights, a number of fights. So that is not a total impediment. And I don't know if there is anything that would prevent it if both fighters want that fight, and they might. And God knows they could make a pile of money, but it's a risky fight in a way for both men, obviously, because they're fighting somebody that is potentially can beat them, which is what we want to see in boxing in any case. And
right.
We shouldn't be denigrating a fighter if they lose one fight, which of course just happened to Deontay Wilder, and everybody has written them off already. That's what happens, unfortunately. But I think this fight could be made.
Yeah, I mean that's what makes the fights. That's what makes a fight the best, Al, is that everybody has a significant amount of risk,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that both, Joshua just is coming off this win over Ruiz where he's reestablished himself. I think it would be more on the question of whether Wilder wants to do this fight. I think Fury has shown a willingness to do these kinds of fights, and Fury will probably go in the favorite in that fight, which is interesting because that might not have been the case a couple of years ago. It will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I mean, we had Tyson Fury, Al Bernstein, a couple more minutes left with Al Bernstein here on the Rich Eisen Show. We had Tyson Fury here in June. We reposted a snippet of that interview where he was talking about his battle with mental illness and how
that was extraordinary.
I mean, it really was just having him sitting in this chair, extending his legs, which was half of my desk, look me in the face and say that he came from a family where communication and talking about mental health problems was an indication of weakness, which made it more difficult for him to deal with it, and he still deals with it every single day. I was just blown away by it, and it just makes him just. Honestly, he's straight out of like a Guy Ritchie movie. He's 6'9". He's singing American Pie. He's dancing before a fight. He's dominating in the fight. He's like an international superstar right now, Al. Period.
He is. I agree. All those things you just said. He has a vulnerability to talk about those things. And by the way, that interview was great.
Thank you,
love
sir.
that interview you did with him. He has the vulnerability to, and this is what for a little while. Tyson Fury got away from that. He tried to become some supervillain and say outrageously terrible things, but I knew that wasn't who Tyson Fury was. And then he got back to being a more genuine version of himself. And how about this? How do you, after a fight, remember the lyrics to two verses of American Pie? Most people can't remember the verses to American Pie without having been beaten in the head for 6 rounds. So that was pretty extraordinary. But you're right. He is a fascinating international figure, and he's a brand. And it's going to be very interesting. Of course, the key to keeping that brand strong is winning in the ring, and he's been doing that.
Exactly. And speaking of key, keep your analyst hat on. As a man with his own lounge act, his own singing, his own career, how was Tyson's pitch? I thought he sounded great, don't you think?
He was in tune. As I said, he remembered all the lyrics.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty extraordinary to do that a cappella off the cuff in front of all those people. I mean, that was an extraordinary moment. Let's be honest. I mean, when Bernardo Osuna was interviewing me, he takes the mic away. And of course, as you well know, the major rule is you hate to give up the mic. Once you've given up the mic as an interviewer, you're a dead man. But he was smart enough to understand that this was going to be a truly special moment, and it became something that will live on as kind of a folk legend.
Yes.
After a fight.
But that said, Al Bernstein versus Tyson Fury, we go to the cards. You win that round 10-8 every time, right? 10-7?
Well, here's what I think. Now Tyson has a home out here, and I know what I want to do is entice him to do a duet with me. That's what I have to get with Tyson and say, look, it's time for us to do a duet.
It's now, what would that be? Fury and Bernstein, or Bernstein and Fury? Who gets the top billing there, Al?
Well, he's a champion of the world, and he is now a folk hero. I'm going to let him get top billing.
Okay, very good, Al. He's also 6'9", and his fist is literally the size of my head. So I think that's a wise decision on your part.
As always, you make a salient point.
Thank you, Al. You're the best, Al. Really appreciate it. Always love our chats. We'll chat soon.
Rich, you take care. Good to talk to you.
Right back at you. Hall of Fame boxing analyst and Hall of Fame human individual, Al Bernstein.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.